Peace, family. I'm Dog Vader, and you're watching Feel Free TV. Thank you for watching. Today's episode is basically about a wife's experience dealing with her husband who's incarcerated. Many people may not understand the attraction to someone who's behind bars, but the fact is, they're people too. Many people don't realize that these people behind bars are husbands, wives, they have children and families outside the prison walls. Some people even marry while they're incarcerated. And when someone is married to a person that's incarcerated, it can generate a lot of mixed feelings and it can carry a giant stigma to those outside waiting. In this episode, we discuss these topics. Thank you for watching Feel Free TV. So we have here Jessica.
Hi.
So Jessica was not incarcerated, but me and Jessica was married. So I want to get her experience on how it was to be married to an individual that was incarcerated. We're going to talk about, trials and tribulations that women go through being married to men who are incarcerated or vice versa. We rarely get her side of the spectrum. So this is basically what Feel Free TV is about. It's about getting both sides of the spectrum and just letting people have a platform to speak their truth. So with that being said, Jessica.
Yes, Jay.
So we were married in Sullivan Correctional Facility.
Yes.
So from your point of view, how did we meet? Because people want to know, how do you meet someone in prison? Because we never met each other outside of prison. When she met me, I already had 8 years incarcerated already. So she met me on my last 4 years, 4.5 years of incarceration. So a lot of people want to know, how do you just meet people in prison? So we're going to let Jessica explain her experience on how she met me while I was incarcerated.
So since we were speaking of truths of things, not what I was telling people for a little while, because there's a little bit of a difference in that. I had just come from a failed relationship and I worked a lot and didn't have time to go out and do stuff. So I went on to a dating site, Plenty of Fish to be exact, and I caught this fish.
Okay. So now I know people want to know, how are you on a dating site while you're incarcerated? How did you do that? So I was incarcerated in Sullivan Correctional Facility. I was working in the kitchen and I met this guy named Ant. So Ant has a wife named Rose. So Ant proposed to me that if I give him a certain amount, that his wife could put me on a dating site. Now I've been trying prior to then with different dating sites, but this was for women who were trying to meet prisoners, those type of dating sites. So women just knew off the rip that, the individual was incarcerated. So I wanted to try something different. So I paid her, I sent her a picture. I had a little profile or something, and Rose put me on the dating site actually. So I got a few hits, I got a few misses, and then eventually I got a letter from her.
So I'm going to interrupt.
Okay.
So with this, as you can see, I'm a little bit of a bigger girl. And one of the things that stuck out in his profile was color, size, all of that didn't really matter. And he's handsome. I'm gonna try it out, And then I kind of knew, though I didn't walk into it blind. I kind of had a feeling that he was incarcerated already. Something about the pants and the sneakers that he had on. But because I kind of had a feeling, I already knew that he was in prison. True, I was corresponding with Rose at first. And I was asking her, I'm like, wait, hold on. How are you doing this if you're in prison? And so Rose explained the situation that, you know, her husband Anthony and Jay were friends or worked together, and that this is something that she does for these guys, trying to help them find love and make a true love connection, and happiness for people. And, you know, it was a little bit slower corresponding because she had to talk to her husband, who had to talk to him. And then finally I was given his information and I wrote to him.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
She wrote me, of course. We corresponded. So what I want to ask you is like, what was it like? What was it like? No, what was it like coming on a visit? Like, what did you have to go through coming on a visit? Because
a lot.
Because see, I don't know. I don't know what women have to really go through when they come on a visit. So give her like a description of what do you have to go through, the process, the visiting room process, just to come visit an individual that's incarcerated.
So before I even get there, Sullivan Correctional Facility is in this tiny little town called Fallsburg in the middle of nowhere, literally surrounded by mountains. And I lived in Syracuse. It was 157 miles one way. So it's not something that you could just be like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna go on a visit. You really have to plan it out and make sure you have the time off work. Make sure that your car's gonna make it and that you have the money to get there and back and money for the vending machines, but you can't bring in too much money because they don't allow that. But when you get there, imagine walking into a room of people and they already are judging you. When you walk into the facility, you have these COs just talking about whatever they feel like talking about, and sometimes it's raunchy discussion, sometimes they talk about like really grotesque stuff that supposedly they saw there. But you get signed in, and when you get in, you have to take your jewelry off, you have to take your glasses off. If you have like hairpins and anything that's gonna cause that metal detector to ring, you have to take it off. I would always have to take my shoes off, and I would have to walk through the metal detector. Regardless of what bra I ever tried to wear, I always set it off. And if it wasn't the underwire, it was the hooks themselves. So I would have to go into the bathroom, take my bra off, and put it in this tiny little paper bag. I guess it's for modesty, but my bras, you know, had some issues with that. So to come out with it, like you have somebody that you don't know what they've been doing with their hands, handling your undergarments, and then have to put them on, all the while they're kind of like looking at you. And sometimes you hear people in the package room calling us hoes and whores, and like, how could we love somebody that's in prison not knowing the situation? Sometimes they would have dogs there, sniffing all of your belongings. I was actually on one overnight visit, and on the overnight visits, you have to bring everything in. So if you think about it, like your salt and pepper shaker, if you have one, however long you've had it, just keep using it. Every time it had to be a brand new set. All the seasonings, they had to open everything right there. So you spend all this money and time figuring out what you want to cook. And then they would have a dog there, and the dog would be sniffing everything, and just like, imagine buying a steak and you've got like some strange dog sniffing it. But for the regular visits, you could hear, like I said, you could hear them talking about stuff and Then you get that anxiety of going up there and having to be escorted through the prison, and sometimes workers from other facilities are there, I believe, probably next door. They're kind of looking at you, and it's just like, it's not a happy place to go to. It's really not. And as weird as it sounds, I almost think like you get numb to that, but the one thing you don't get numb to is at 3:00. You have to leave. At 3:00, you have to go and you have to show your hand because they stamp you to make sure that you're not an escaped prisoner. And you have to show it, and ultimately you have to leave after just spending the past couple hours with a person that you're crazy about and that you love, and you have to go back and carry on with your life, just like holding on to that little bit of time that you had with them, with people breathing down your neck. Feet on the floor, and you could just have your feet up like on the edge of your own chair. You know how the visits work. And
So-
they tell you not to.
So, do you feel like when you come to visit, do you feel like they make you feel like you're a prisoner?
Yeah, like you don't have any rights when you walk in there and you sign in. You don't have rights. They could sit up here and you could be on your way there, and they'll randomly pull you aside and swab you for drugs to see if you have anything. And that's nerve-wracking, even though you know you don't have anything on you, but you know that you've touched door handles, you maybe had on a new pair of pants, and they check the pockets and everything.
Another thing is, like, if you touch money,
Oh yeah,
people don't realize that
Yeah.
all money has residue from drugs, some type of residue from drugs. So if you handled money that someone has handled drugs, and if they also handled the same money, that residue is going to be on your hands.
Especially where I worked at Denny's.
Yeah. So they can easily pick that up off your hands and then say, okay, you've been handling drugs. Visit terminated. Just off some residue that was on your hands that you picked up from handling dirty money. I mean, what can you do, right? I mean,
Sweat it out. All that's on the back of your mind. Of course, you can sit up here. You can deny them. You can tell them no.
Yeah.
But that's an automatic termination of your visit.
Mm-hmm.
You have to drive back the 157 miles, knowing that like you'd be worried about what happened to me. Why didn't I show up? Because once I started telling you when I was coming, you would get worried. Oh my gosh, what happened? Did she have an accident? Did she not make it? Did she oversleep? Like any one of those things. And then if you brought a package, that's gotta go with me too. That's 35 pounds.
35 pounds of food. So in Sullivan Correctional Facility, you're allowed a maximum of 35 pounds of food per month. Now, 35 pounds of food
isn't anything.
Is not a lot of food, really.
It depends on what you get.
It depends on what you get.
Like some people, if they eat like just junk food, that's a lot of bags of chips. Yeah. But some people
like a lot of
healthy.
Yeah, some people like a lot of vegetables and stuff like that, and fruits. Like me, I like vegetables, nuts,
stuff.
Beans, stuff like that.
Heavy canned stuff, like your octopus.
So let me explain my end of the spectrum when it comes to visits. So for me, when I know that I have a visit, this is what most prisoners do. So we get ready the day before. We prep. We get our clothes ready. A lot of times, most guys won't even go outside for recreation before a visit because anything can happen. You can get into altercation. They can shut the yard down. Yeah, a lot of guys will not go outside or to recreation before a visit. They'll stay in their cells. Like I said, we prep, iron our clothes. If we're going on a conjugal visit, we'll have all our clothes laid up, packed up and ready to go. But usually when you're going on a regular visit, you have to sit there and you have to wait. You have to wait for your visitor to be processed. So they could have gotten in at say 10 o'clock.
And count.
And it might be count time. So now they have to wait. So they might have to wait for till the count is clear. So that means the correctional facility has to do the whole count for the whole entire facility before they allow any movement. So if someone comes at 10 o'clock and gets caught up in the count, now they have to wait probably like an hour.
It was closer to they stopped, I want to say they stopped calling you guys down is it 10:30, between 10:30 and 11.
Yeah.
If you got there that time,
you would have to wait.
You sitting there with
for like
Miss
an
B
hour.
staring down.
So then you get called an account and their visit has to wait. You have to wait until the count is clear and then movement will commence. So now once an individual who's incarcerated gets to the visiting floor, you have to be checked. So you get on the visiting floor, you show your ID, the guard will search you, send you on a visit. So you're happy to be on a visit. You see your loved ones, your friends, your family. You're on a visit. So on the visit, they don't want you touching hands too long. They don't want you kissing too long. They don't want you hugging too long.
You have to be across from each other or at a 90 degree.
Yeah, you have to be directly across from each other or at a 90 degree. They don't want you sitting next to each other.
Can't have your heads down together.
Yeah, you can't have your heads down. Your feet have to be under the table. And I'm not gonna lie, they pick on you for the littlest things. Just something simple. They'll come interrupt your visit. A lot of time the guards don't know how to speak to your family. They speak to your family as if they're prisoners. And that's what I don't like. I did a crime, I got incarcerated. You shouldn't be talking to me like that, but I can understand why you're talking to me like that. But when you have someone who comes from the outside, who's coming to see you, who sacrificed their money, their time to come see you, and you disrespect them, that makes me feel, a kind of a way. And that's basically what they do. So the visits last
6 hours, 9
Yeah. So, but you can stay on the visiting floor that long if you
get there that early.
If you get there early. If you get there early enough, you can stay on the visiting floor for 6 hours. But it depends on what time you get on the visiting floor, and then if your visitor has something else to do. So now I wanted to talk about the stigma that comes with marrying a prisoner. So we all know there's a stigma with prisoners, period. But when you're married to a prisoner, it's a serious stigma. So what have people said to you about you marrying a guy in prison?
A lot.
For sure.
I got a lot of, what are you thinking? You're young, you have a bright future, you could have any guy, why this one? What's so great about him? Don't you want to have a family, and don't you want to have someone to come home to every night and help you carry in the groceries and clean out the car, but you want this guy, this society reject, if you will. I was scared to tell my dad. I was petrified. I think I told him a week before we got married. I got a lot of, he's just using you. He's just gonna use you. He's gonna get what he can from you. And then when he comes home, he's gonna leave you. It's just not gonna be the same, because he would have gotten everything they needed from you, and you filled that void for him and gave him something to do because he's bored. or, you know, you definitely can't have a weak psyche about it. You can't, because people are so mean. And one of the things that got to me the most, that still pisses me off, is people that, I can't even say, yeah, fortunate in a way, but people that don't know anybody that have been incarcerated, or they know someone, but it's like their cousin's boyfriend, sister's uncle's kid type thing. They'll make comments like, oh yeah, maybe I should just go rob somebody and then I can go to prison and I can get free cable and free food and I don't have bills to pay, and then I can get an education and I don't have to worry about any of that. And I get that quite a bit as well. It makes me want to slap some knowledge into people, but to avoid further stereotypes, I just kind of had to pick my head up.
Yeah.
And you can't be mad at people for like their ignorance. And it's not ignorance of like, oh, they're being ignorant. Lack of knowledge is ignorance. And until you've been in that position, you really can't judge it. But I kind of got a lot of that. Yeah, like he's just gonna use you and then be done with you. And of course, he's gonna tell you all these things. He has nothing else to do but think of stuff to say to try to ruin your life and everything else.
So now, do you think that they were right? Because we are not together.
No.
We are not together. But do you think that they were right? Then be honest.
So,
be honest to the people.
I'm not gonna lie. When it first happened, I had my doubts. I kind of felt away. But then when people were telling me that, I was like, nah, I've met his mom. I've met his sister. Like, they've embraced me, you know. He wouldn't have me around his family if he was just using me, right? But yeah, when you think about 4.5 years of 157 miles one way, potential tickets, and how many times I came in weather that I kind of got chastised for coming to, phone calls, packages, like scurrying around trying to find like the shirt that doesn't have the little line in it, learning the way around that, trying to find everything the way that it needed to be, and it's frustrating. I think that we kind of came into each other's life when we both needed somebody, and I don't focus on the monetary portion of it. All that's rough, but I don't feel that way. You helped me out a lot. Like, I think if it wasn't for you, and you know this, I was going on a really nasty, destructive path, and you kind of threw me the life jacket and pulled me in. You definitely got me calm down.
Yeah.
You showed me what it felt like to have someone love me, and like really made me feel loved. And even when things went the other way, it was hard, but I understood where you were coming from. I thought I understood it, but it wasn't until I watched your last interview that it hit me that much harder as to why, if that makes sense. But yeah, I want to say that the stigmatism, or if I felt used or whatever, I don't think so, because I think for all of that, I got a lot out of it too.
That's good. I'm glad you don't feel like I used you, because that wasn't my intention.